to Dr. Woods, we're going to start an interview with you. So with Agile, what was your first initial reaction? So like, did you have any negative reactions, positive reactions?
My reaction to Agile is, it was interesting to learn about Agile because I realized I've been doing a lot of the Agile stuff for a long time. I just didn't have the name. I haven't been doing all of the Agile concepts and practices, but the overall sort of, the idea of iterations and planning and that kind of stuff. I realized I had sort of already been doing this. I now have a name for it.
Okay, cool. So once you learned about Agile, did you ever connect it to your teaching, or how did you connect it to your teaching?
I connected it to my teaching just in the it gave me a sort of a structured way to have a class evolve during the semester. As so, if I saw that students were interested in something or having trouble understanding something, that would go into a like a planning process for the next week or next module, and make sure that I address that. And then at the end of the week or periodically, we just say, well, what are the students doing well with? What aren't they doing well with? And just some reflection so that hopefully the course better met the students' needs by being agile and responding to what I learned from them.
And I know that anything new can be frustrating to learn, and that's what we're learning in our CID 205 class right now. Was it hard once you started utilizing Agile into your classroom, and once you started learning Agile yourself, was it kind of frustrating? Like, did students kind of react? How did they react to it?
So the students at some point don't know I'm using Agile when I'm putting my class together, but I've used Agile or I've really tried to use Agile in classes with team projects. And that's been a bit of a challenge for students because some students, just sort of want to be told what they're to do, whereas Agile is sort of self-organizing, which is a big struggle. But once you figure it out, you're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's the frustrating part, because that's what we're learning right now in our class. We got to build this website, and everybody has to choose their own what to do, what not to do, and we're kind of figuring out, one side's having a little bit harder than the other side, so we had to go by and walk up to this team and say, hey, do you need help with anything? Versus what we already thought that we needed to do. We thought we needed to work on this, but now it seems like we have to work on that. So you have to be a little bit flexible with Agile, and I think that's what would be frustrating with students.
And students also, they're used to getting a grade that's what they've done, and so sometimes, my team project was a disaster, but my part was good. I'm like, okay, I'm glad your part was good, but I'm still really concerned that the team part didn't work well, because you needed to take ownership of that, and that's one of the Agile things.
I can definitely see why that gets frustrating, because as a student, as a professor, you have to, kind of look at that and say, you worked well on this, but the overall product was not as optimal as you would hope it would be. So, and that's one of the questions that we're wondering too. Are we graded by individual performance, or are we graded by how the overall product is?
Well, what I started doing is, and you mentioned it, is that if a key to Agile is communication, right? And so I started actually structuring weekly activities during the team projects where I was trying to use Agile. I started structuring weekly activities that ask the students to communicate with each other about what they've been doing and what they're going to be doing, the Agile stand-up.
Yeah, the team contracts.
Not just the team contracts, just simply whether they updated their teammates a couple of times a week on what they've done and what they have done.
One message, yeah.
I actually gave them a structure for it. What have you done in the last couple of days? What are you going to do in the next couple of days? What are your challenges? And it's the standard Agile stand-up. They got points for doing it, so I was doing points for activities that should help the team, and so I found that helpful, because if once they started doing it, they would do that because it got them individual points, but it had value for the team, because then the team knew what was going on. The team then had to sort of use that knowledge, but that's sort of the next step.
Gotcha. Right? And talking about stand-ups, what other activities have you implemented into, like on top of stand-ups for Agile activities? Did you use like planning poker?
One of the activities I use sometime that when you think about it, makes a lot of sense, is the showcase concept. Because in a class that you've got this sort of mentality of getting to the end of the semester, and so you finish something, but then there's something else coming. But I think it's useful to occasionally just stop and realize what you've done. And that also naturally leads to the reflection part. You know,
So
okay,
the retrospective.
how could this go better? Why did this go well? And I've been putting that into some of my classes that have a real sort of cyclical nature. I mean, you've taken one of the classes, the 357 class,
Yes.
the capstone research class at the end of every research project. You know, show me what you did. That's great. What went well? How do you keep doing that? What didn't go well? How do you fix it?
Gotcha.
Um,
Are there
there's a-
any, I'm sorry, go ahead.
but there's such a tendency just to move on to the next thing without stopping and thinking about why did that come out the way it did. And there's a lot of value.
And yeah, you kind of miss the, well, sometimes if you don't take those retrospectives, you kind of miss the point of like what could have gone well, what could have gone better, and
Well, if you don't do the retrospective, there's no guarantee that you'll ever get any better. And maybe you just got really lucky and got a good project, and you don't know why, and you don't know how to get a good project
you won't
again.
be able to consistently redo that.
Right.
So that's for a student's perspective. What about your perspective, like the agile techniques? Have you ever had to use them in your setting as a professor or teacher?
So the CIT department is starting to use some of them in like our department meetings and things, and that's partly a couple of things. One is we're teaching Agile in more of our classes, but also in talking to employers, we realize that they are interested in students who know the Agile concepts, but they're also more interested maybe in students who have the Agile mindset, just the way of Agile thinking. And so we realized as a department that if we're going to be teaching Agile, we need to practice it and develop the Agile mindset ourselves, or we're going to struggle to teach that.
Right. And I saw you use the kind of Trello-ish board inside.
Yeah, I had the Kanban board going in my office. I prioritize things, I set deadlines. I do almost like a weekly planning for all of the activities I need to do for my courses and my research and other things. And then at the end of the week, look at what I got done, what I didn't get done, showcase, retrospective, and then into
Right.
planning. And it works quite naturally.
Okay. So when you say quite naturally, in your experience, was it hard to get into the agile mindset, or is it still kind of a learning process?
It takes time to develop a habit, because on the short term, some of these things seem like, oh, they take extra time, or they don't have immediate value. But if you get in the habit of doing them, you don't notice the extra time. It doesn't seem like extra time. It's like anything that if you get in a habit of doing it, you end up not spending as much time thinking of it. And to me, a big thing about Agile, in the documenting user stories and prioritizing all of that at once, is that you no longer have to try to remember all of that stuff and worry about not remembering it. You've documented it somewhere, and your brain can focus more just on.
Becomes natural.
Yeah, it becomes natural, and your brain focuses just more on the immediate task you're doing, not the next task or the task you're trying not to forget and things like that.
Okay. All right. So last question for you: if there are any staff or faculty that are getting into Agile, that's what our website is for. Do you have any feedback to them on how to look into or how to implement Agile into the classroom or in their work schedule?
So I'll offer two things. One is that Agile has an enormous number of practices and things you can do, planning, poker, retrospectives, all of these things. Those are just tools. You need to figure out first what your problem is that what are you trying to make better, and then sort of search through and try a technique that you think will help. And then the other thing is the best way to sort of learn Agile is to talk to someone who's already doing some Agile, just to get their experiences and see how it's going.